Be unfair not to think of Dave Bautista as an actor first now and as a wrestler second after.
I don't really know him as a
performance.
wrestler, so I guess he is an actor to me. You'll always be an actor to me, Dave. Hello, and welcome to the Popcorn Club. This week we went to go and see Guardians of the Galaxy. Ooga, Chucka, ooga, 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 Chucka. Finally, that song has some meaning to me other than Ally McBeal.
Guardians of the Galaxy is another Marvel superhero film, but not all at the same time. It's more...
Not as you know it.
Almost like a space opera rather than a superhero film with a bunch of misfits led by Peter Quill, also known as Star-Lord. And they're essentially, race across the galaxy.
A ragtag bag of losers.
Misfits and ne'er-do-wells.
And you've got a lot of great cast in there. So Chris Pratt, Bradley Cooper, Zoe Saldana,
Vin Diesel.
And Dave Bautista playing the characters.
Classically trained Dave Bautista.
If you don't really like the traditional Marvel superhero films, I actually think you might like this one because it's not like anything from there I've ever seen before. It's completely different. It's actually not really about the superhero / aspect of it. It's actually more just funny with a heart.
As much as it's different in tone and location and style and humour than a lot of the other Marvel films, and a lot of that's down to James Gunn, it is still a Marvel film, and the plot still does have the similar tropes of the characters chasing after the MacGuffin / Infinity Stone gem that will...
That's just par for the course, really. Again,
well, I mean, it doesn't have to, but it doesn't have to be, though.
The execution was so strong that was neither here nor there for me. The main characters are really well fleshed out. Not only are they really funny, but they've actually got a backstory to them. They've all got, I think it's Rocket that describes them as a bunch of losers, kind of off the cuff, kind of snidely almost, snarking at them. They don't spend a massive amount of time with it, but everyone's got a reason for wanting to, for being able to bond with each other in that way. I had a certain expectation of what I thought this film was going to be like, and that it was going to be a bit silly, probably quite funny, but nothing like groundbreaking. And I wouldn't say it's groundbreaking, but it's more than I expected it to be, because it is all of those things: funny, silly, but with a heart. All
the characters end up being a lot more fleshed out than I think you kind of expect them to be going in. I think even those who had high expectations for the film, I don't think thought that they'd all nail the characters just right. There were lots of people claiming that Bradley Cooper doing the voice wasn't going to be quite right, or he didn't really have the right tone going on, that there was maybe slight concerns about Bautista as whether he could actually pull it off. And then even with Groot being just sort of only saying 3 words.
That was the massive shock for me. So Groot was probably the character that I was expecting the least from, just because I'm not a massive Vin Diesel fan. I wasn't expecting much from Groot at all, but actually he's probably my favourite character. He's only given 3 lines of dialogue throughout the whole film. The character can only say, "I am Groot." But somehow, I don't know whether it's the direction he was given or whether Vin Diesel is secretly an amazing actor. I think you'll find that Vin
Diesel's actually a better actor than you give him credit for. Anyone who's seen The Iron Giant, which I know you haven't, sadly, will know that Vin Diesel can get a lot of emotion out of very few lines. He plays the giant.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He is the giant.
Well, that makes all kinds of sense now. Drax, played by Dave Bautista. The way he delivered the character of Drax is, it just really worked. Slightly on the autistic side, just taking everything literally. It was just very, very funny.
I think Bradley Cooper's Rocket, all the bits that they showed in the trailer kind of hinted as to how ridiculous and crazy his character would be. But I think there was also there was a lot of tortured emotion. There was a lot more going on with these characters, and a lot more that I think than people were expecting. Where the main cast are 3-dimensional and there's heart and there's depth to them in ways that you weren't expecting, the villains are the same sort of one-note, fairly humourless thing that you'd expect from, or not expect, but you just see in many, many films. I think it almost feels like the Ronan the Accuser character is feels like he's in a completely different film to everything else around him.
Just didn't register that actually the villains weren't that scary, because you're just having so much fun watching them come together and fight for something, no matter what that something is.
Mm-hmm. It's hilarious at the end when Ronan is confronted with the Guardians and with Peter Quill, Star-Lord, and they just starts to dance off, and he just has no fucking clue what's going on. And he's just like, what is this? And it's almost like, what has he? You feel like he just walked into a completely different film. It's nice that Marvel, I don't know if they essentially took a punt on James Gunn. His only films before this are Slither and Super, and they are very wacky in tone. He's proved with those films that he can do the sort of the weird, the obscure, the kind of the funny and the crazy all in one go. But to be given a budget as big as this and the backing of a studio like this and getting it right, it's really fantastic to see such a kind of crazy sci-fi story actually get embraced by both critics and the audience. There's so many over the last few years that have kind of won critical praise but not really kind of made money. It is a bit of a shame as well to see people like Glenn Close and Benicio del Toro and even John C. Reilly to a certain extent get quite underused in the film. There will be some characters who are there just to push along the story and don't have that much to do, but it is just kind of a shame in the way that it's actors of their caliber given not much to do when you know that they could do so much more.
It didn't distract me because the rest of it was just so great to watch that I wasn't annoyed by that. And also, actually, I think having actors of that caliber, the bits they were given to do helped to just flesh out the whole world that he's created so much more than you would get if you had like lesser known actors. And the kind of set design to the costumes to the cinematography, it's just so immersive. It's a completely new world to a lot of people probably in the audience, because I doubt everyone will be familiar with the actual source material, but I think it's one that gets you into it quite quickly and quite successfully. And the other great thing that helps with that whole setting up of the world is the soundtrack. I thought that was genius in terms of using 80s music and creating a context for being able to use the 80s music as well that worked.
It got right to the heart of the Peter Quill's character and the origin of why he calls himself Star-Lord as well, which was heartbreaking.
It was just genius because it got the humour. It contributed to some really humorous moments and obviously some really poignant ones as well. Popcorns. I'm just going to go out there and say I thought it was brilliant. I'm going to give it a 9.
Nice.
I love it.
Okay.
I don't disagree with some of the nitpicks we've got there, but they're just not strong enough for me to say that it's less than a 9. I just thought it was brilliant. And probably scoring it quite high because it was just so unexpectedly brilliant. I was not expecting that at all.
It is an 8.5 again. I did have some issues with the film. There weren't major, huge issues, and the film gets an awful lot right, but I think they're enough to pull it back.
Next week, we are seeing the dregs of the end of the summer season by going to see The Inbetweeners 2. I mean, maybe it will shock us all.
The first film was, and still stands as, the highest grossing comedy in British cinema history.
It was funny. Let us know what you thought of Guardians of the Galaxy if you've been to see it. Did you love it like us, or did you not get it, not really understand what it was about? Let us know in the comment section below, or you can tweet us on Facebook, and all of those links are in the description box. And we will see you next time. Bye. And, who doesn't love a dance-off?
Quite.
Hands up. No, there's no hands up in this room. No.